In the wastelands of Fallout, Caesar, or Caesar's Legion, is one of the most brutal armies ever assembled. But hidden inside this empire is a strange, secret faith devoted to something far older than the bombs. Known as the Cult of Mars, its followers see war not just as survival, but as a sacred worship. Their bizarre rituals and twisted beliefs shape the way the Legion fights, kills, and even justifies its cruelty. This, my fellow Wastelanders, is the story of the Legion's Cult of Mars. In Fallout New Vegas, best Fallout by the way, the Legion's worship of Mars might seem like just another group with post-apocalyptic insanity, but there is a bit more to the story. The Legion doesn't see itself as just another faction scrapping for power in the Mojave. It sees itself as the inheritors of Rome's divine mission, destined to bring civilization to the wasteland through the god of war's blessing. In Roman mythology, Mars embodied the discipline of soldiers, the strength of the state, and even the cycles of fertility and growth that sustained the Rome itself. He was seen as both destroyer and protector, the force that could tear down enemies while ensuring the survival of the city. According to Legion's belief, Mars allowed the nuclear apocalypse to happen, cleansing the earth with fire, so his son, Edward Salo, the man who would become Caesar, could lead humanity out of chaos. By proclaiming himself the son of Mars, Caesar places himself in the exact same position as Roman emperors, who once tied their rule to divine approval. By calling himself this, he elevated his role from mere conqueror to messiah. To his soldiers, Mars is more than just a symbol of battle. He is also the higher power that makes their conquest, dare I say, righteous. While outsiders see the Legion as slavers and butchers, within the Cult of Mars, every battle, every crucifixion, every sacrifice is framed as divine will.
Finally, Mars has accepted my sacrifices and unleashes me.
Going back to ancient history, Roman emperors relied on the imperial cult, where they were worshipped as divine or semi-divine figures. Augustus, the first emperor, never outright called himself a god, but temples were built in his honor. Later, emperors went further, demanding sacrifices to their names as a proof of loyalty. Caesar in Fallout mirrors this exactly. By declaring himself Mars' son, he creates a higher calling. Legionaries talk about Caesar with honor, not just as a leader, but as a supernatural figure whose favor grants them strength. His word becomes law, and his presence becomes a ritual. To fight for Caesar is a religious devotion, and for the men raised in the wasteland's chaos, the idea of serving order is intoxicating. When Caesar conquers a city and enslaves its people, the first lesson is religion. The adults are stripped of their identity and autonomy, and many resist until they meet death, the arena, or the cross. But their children are taken in by the Legion's priestesses, one of the few positions of power given to women, and within the cult, the most important role that they can hold. They raise their children from a young age to worship Mars and revere Caesar as his son. For them, belief is all they've ever known, and over time, this system manufactures loyalty, making sure that every new generation grows into true believers of the Cult of Mars. Ritual and discipline. They believe that fighting Mars' wars will grant them eternal honor, and even see violence as a sacred ritual. Legionaries embody the cult's values of strength, loyalty, and justice. But cowardice is seen as deeply shameful and incompetent, which ultimately means eternal disgrace from Mars, rightfully so. When this weakness is shown, punishment is swift and brutal, from whippings to sometimes even crucifixion. These became public reminders that Mars demands strength and loyalty above all. The result is a society where faith and fear are inseparable. Soldiers fight harder because they believe Mars is watching. Slaves stay obedient because of the harsh punishments for resistance. And Caesar's power endures, not only on the battlefield, but in the minds of every soul the Legion controls. Ritual sacrifice also plays a massive role in the Legion's identity. Legate Lanius, the terrifying monster of the East, is known to sacrifice NCR soldiers to Mars before battle. Lanius stands as the enforcer of its will, the executioner who ensures that Caesar's commands are carried out without question. To many outsiders, this is extremely barbaric, but to legionaries, it's a sacred duty. When Lanius raises his sword, they see not a man, but a Roman god of war acting through him. However, Lanius' greatest weapon is fear. His face is hidden behind a mask, and even his very name, which in Roman mythology translates to butcher in Latin, is a fitting one. Slaves are blinded so they can never describe him, and rumors swirl that he's not a man, but a mythical beast. At the head of Caesar's order is Lucius, the commander who has served the Legion for over 13 years. His devotion is legendary, and if anyone dared to betray Caesar, it was sometimes Lucius who oversaw those punishments, not just as vengeance, but as a ritual sacrifice to reaffirm the godhood of Caesar and his rule. Caesar's flesh is not mortal, but divine, and anyone who dares strike at it must be made into an example for the rest of the Legion to see. To question Caesar is not only insubordination, but it is heresy against the very foundation of the Legion. Just as Romans viewed neglect of the state as treason, the Legion sees disbelief or defiance as a threat to the entire order. Overall, the Cult of Mars is a spiritual engine that powers Caesar's Legion in Fallout New Vegas. Without it, the Legion would just be another warband of raiders, held together by violence and fear. But with it, the Legion transforms into something extraordinary, a society where its members have found purpose to spread the word of Mars and conquer the wasteland as their own. Because Awe,